The 1990s was a decade that saw the rise of many different genres of video games, innovation in graphics, home consoles, and handheld gaming. Despite all this innovation, while more players did come in, many of them weren't female, and marketing was still primarily targeted towards boys. In 1996, Tomb Raider was released. This was the first game to have a female protagonist besides Miss Pac-Man and Metroid, both of which kept this hidden from the player, or Miss Pac-Man, which was an arcade game. Tomb Raider was the first game to keep a female protagonist from the start to the finish. While this decision was widely seen as positive and progressive, there were also many complaining about the design of the game's protagonist, Lara Croft. It was said that she was sexualized and her character was designed to purely appeal to male players, but this stopped the game from being a truly great representation of a strong female character. It is obvious that while we did see some more progress towards representation in this decade, it wouldn't be until later that we see female characters in gaming that are created purely as a character and were not sexualized. Tomb Raider was a good step forward for the industry, but still had issues that wouldn't be fixed until much later down the line.
During the 2000s, video games became a lot more mainstream, and the release of consoles like the DS and the Wii opened the market up to more people than ever. This, along with wider knowledge of social issues, resulted in game developers thinking about their audience and targeting games towards more than just men and adolescent boys. As you can see, the statistics show that almost 50% of game players are women, and the average game player is much higher than you'd expect, the average age. This contrasts with the expected stereotype of a male teenage gamer. I'm going to be looking at two games today, Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row, as an example of different ways developers can take gender into account while designing games. I'd like to talk about how the two franchises approach the same issue differently. Both franchises have the same premise and gameplay, but the player controls a protagonist who can explore a city, doing various missions, or play through a story, or do free roam. Saints Row shows a much greater amount of thought towards gender inclusivity. The appearance and voice of the main character is completely changeable and customizable in Saints Row, and the main cast of characters include various different women and main characters and people of colour. In GTA 4, there's not an option for changing the gender of the main protagonist, and the only female characters in the story are either rarely seen or serve as love interests for the main character. There are 5 different girlfriend characters in the game, and the player can choose which one to romance. Each of them giving different stat bonuses, so it doesn't really affect much other than like statistical things like how much health you have in the game. So it's sort of down to that rather than their actual personality and characters. In conclusion, this shows that while developing GTA 4, Rockstar rarely thought through the different demographics that could be playing the game. Even though the game was of course successful, the GTA franchise as a whole could be more successful if they added things like character customization and a more diverse cast of characters to appeal to wider demographics.
Yeah, I'm pretty much just going to continue off where Danny left off. I'm going to be focusing more on the sexualization of women in games. So, just going to start off with pointing out that the players of games are pretty, for the most part, evenly split between men and women. But if you go over to how many women work in games, it's not accurately reflected, so there's a disparity between how many women are interested in games, how many actually pursue it. And this could be for like many reasons. Some would be women not being encouraged to pursue STEM fields like programming. So I have 2 examples here of good representation and bad representation. So show of hands for who thinks this is good representation. And show of hands for this. Jade, why do you think this is good representation?
She's more covered and she has armor, which she would probably need.
Right, so she's actually clothed for the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan? Right, so Quiet, as her name suggests, has no lines of dialogue in the game. She doesn't really serve to push the story further. That's why I list the secondary character in this, because she serves no real function, even though secondary characters can be very good, like Ellie from The Last of Us. She's also really inappropriately dressed, like that's not protecting anything. Aloy, on the other hand, has over 1,000 lines of dialogue. Her clothing represents the actual world that she exists in and isn't just there for eye candy. She's also the protagonist, which is another step that the developers took in ensuring that women had good representation in their game. So in conclusion, there seems to be a disparity between how many women are interested in games and how many actually pursue it. And I think that if we fix this here issue, then we could see more protagonists like Aloy. And games are not hurt by including the female protagonist, so I think more games should incorporate that. As we can see from Horizon Zero Dawn having 8 million units sold, I think. You'd also do a better job at just pointing out bad representation, such as Quiet, because like that's clearly ridiculous. And yeah, so any questions?